Welcome to this tutorial on financial modeling using Kaluta projection methodology. Last time we did an exercise of preparation of common size financials from annual projected financials. In this exercise we are going to do the same exercise but for monthly projected financials. So I am here at monthly income statement sheet, and as usual we are going to leave pre-operating period because during this period there are no sales, and the sales figure is our base for computation of percentage of line items, okay, to prepare common size financials. So we will start from here, April 22 in year 1, where the year 1 begins. So I copy this from here till the end of our projection period, that is the end of year 3. So I'm selecting all this up to here, year 3, end of year 3, that is March 25. I copy this and then bring it to the end here. Let me paste it here, and because we are going to do the same for other monthly financial statements, let me go and paste it to other financial statements. So here in balance sheet I'm going to do the same, monthly balance sheet. So go to the end and then paste it somewhere here, paste, and monthly cash flow statement here, go to the end and paste it. So this one should be, the end should be somewhere here, paste. Okay, so let us go back to our monthly income statement and start to do the workings. So sales figure is going to be our common denominator for the purpose of conversion, and so here I put a formula, double tap, use this one, start with equal sign, and then go pick the sales figure for beginning of year 1 here, this one, and then divide it by itself, but I need to lock row 3 so that when I drag this formula it will always pick on row 3. So this figure, and then divide by, let me choose this one, that is, we are in is E3, so type E first and then put a dollar sign and type 3 to lock row 3, press enter. Okay, so we have already have that, and let me convert this into percentage terms. Okay, so sales by divide by itself, so it's 100%. Okay, and now I can drag this, so I tap to fill to the end of our projection period here, and then I copy all this selected, I copy all this and then go up and paste it down to line items in order to convert them into percentage. So I paste it here, I come here, select all these line items up to total administrative here, paste, come down here, select up to here, paste here, paste here, paste here, up to profit after tax here, paste. So we are now done with our common size financial on monthly basis. Now again, the same principle applies. You can do vertical analysis, that is comparing the common size financial for the same period. For example, April 22 here. So we see cost of sales is 70% of sales. Salaries and wages are 35.25% of sales. So this is the vertical analysis. Or you can do horizontal analysis comparing April and May. Okay, so salaries and wages for April is 31.25%, for May is 25%, June is 18%. So this is the horizontal analysis. Okay, and because we have done these common size financials on monthly basis, then we need to be careful in interpretation of these financials, because from one month to the other, these may not be comparable because it depends on the cycle, business cycle. Okay, so for example, if you are a farmer and you harvest your farm produce and sell them in the month of June, then that means in the month of June there will be more sales compared to other period. Okay, so there is this cyclical element that needs to be considered when you do monthly analysis. Of course, for our yearly figures we did previous, they are already averaged out during the year. Okay, but for this monthly, you need to see. Of course, it depends on the nature of your business, okay, and the pattern of the transactions within the period in question. Okay, so we can see, for example, if we are looking for total administrative expenses here, we see it is 47.52% in April, 38.26 in May, 28 in June, 19 in July, and from here it becomes a steady. This is how we modeled our financials. It becomes a steady state. Okay, so for our annual, let me go to annual P&L sheet here. Before I do that, let me first take an average for the year. Okay, so let me double tap here. Okay, use this one. Start with. Okay, let me go back to this. Type average, open the bracket, and then take the average from here up to the end of year one, which is here. Check. So I have average for year one, and I can copy this and go to April and do the same for year two here. paste this for year 2. Year 3, go there and do the same. April, to take the average for year 3, paste. Okay, so we see that though the monthly positions for total administrative expenses vary, start with a bigger figure, 47.52% of the sales in April. Then it went down to 38.26 to 28.99 to 19.73. Okay, so month by month you can see these fluctuations, okay, depending of course on the modeling assumptions, and we assume that this is the real situation that we expect to occur. When you look at the average now, you have averaged out all those variances within the periods from one month to the other. They have been averaged out by taking the average for the annual, okay? And this one can now be comparable to our annual. For example, if I go to P&L, annual P&L sheet here, we did that exercise of our common size financials, and total administrative expenses for year 1, we got 22.2%, okay, for year 1. And in this case, on monthly basis, we ended up having P&L, so 22%, and for monthly basis, we ended up having an average of 24.36%, okay? So you can see the average has averaged out the fluctuations in monthly basis, because we have 47.52 in the first month of the year, 38 in second month, 28, and so on, okay? But the average has averaged them out. And of course the annual average is less than this. The annual, the common size financials in the annual computation was 22, but the average year is 24, and this should be because of the weights. You can see in April we have more, we have larger percentage, and in May the same larger percentage keeps on reducing. So because we have more weight for the earlier months, that could be the reason why we have a relatively larger, but it has already been averaged out, okay? And for year 2 we have 19.71 average, which of course now if we go to our annual P&L sheet for year 2 is 19.71, the same, okay? Because of the steady state, as I said, we arrived at the steady state, and that's why we have the same our common size percentage for annual figure are exactly the same as our average for the year taken on monthly basis. So those are the explanations comparing monthly and annual. And as we said, if we go back to monthly here, so you can do vertical or horizontal, comparing vertical within the same month, horizontal between months. If you have industry figures, you can compare your position with the industry. If you have competitor figures, you can compare your position with the competitor, okay, using these common size financials. And because they are all reduced into the same percentage, I mean the same denominator has been used to convert them into percentage, so they are comparable between one line item and the other. You compare likes with likes as far as their proportion to the total sales are concerned. So now we know in this that each cost element, how much is it, I mean how much cost is incurred within the business compared to other cost elements, okay? So for salaries and wages, for example, in this case here is at 1.25% of sales. For rent is 5.21% of sales, and so on, okay? Right, so we are done with the common size financial for a monthly income statement. Let us now go and do the same exercise on a monthly balance sheet here. And here we are going to use total assets as our common denominator, okay? Because, you know, total asset is a larger figure than all other line items. The same like it was for income statement, that sales figure was larger than the rest of line items, so it becomes what I can say, it becomes intuitive to use it as a base figure, because it can be a common denominator for the rest of other figures. So in this case, total asset is going to be used as the base figure, and now we can start to do our preparations by dividing each line item by total assets. And I put a formula here to start with. Double tap, okay. So start with equal sign, go to the beginning of the period, which was in here, year 1, beginning of year 1. So we take this cash, divide by total assets, and total assets here is in E17, total assets. But we need to lock row 17, so that when we drag this formula, it will always pick on row 17, which is the row for total assets. So we divide by E, so I start with E, which is relative, and then put a dollar sign and type 17 to lock row 17. Press enter. So already we have our formula here. Let me convert this into percentage terms. Okay, so I tap to fill this throughout our projected period up to here, and then I can copy all this. So I copy this and then go to each line item and paste it. So I come here, select all these up to here, paste. Let me repeat again, paste. Okay, come here, tap and paste. Come here, tap and paste. Come here, tap and paste. Come here, tap and paste, come here, select all these up to total current liabilities, paste, come here, tap and paste, come here, tap and paste, come here, tap and paste, come here, select all these up to total owners equity, paste, and come here, in here, tap and paste. Okay, let me format this so that we see all. Format cell size, out of it column width here. So we see all the line items have been converted into percentage term using total asset as a base figure, and this shows now a percentage of each line item compared to total assets. So for each dollar of total assets invested, how much is invested in cash, in debtors, in advance payments. Okay, so you get the percentage there. Okay, and you can do this. This is vertical analysis, comparing between line items, but it can also be horizontal analysis, comparing between April, May, June, and so on. If you have industry data or competitors data of the common size balance sheets, you can do the comparisons. So the same, okay? And of course, these are balance sheets, so it is as at a specific period. So when you compare with the annual, then you only need now to compare the end of, for example, if we are talking of year one, the position that is at the end of year one, here year one ends here in March, okay? So this common size position here is the one that should be the position we will have at the common size financials for annual. Okay, so if we go to annual balance sheet here, annual balance sheet, we have seen the cash is 23.01. So annual balance sheet, where is our annual balance sheet? Annual balance sheet here. Where are our common size financial? They are here. So we see the cash is 23 point here. Or we can simply, what we can do here is to show for the year one, or even all, we can put a formula here and start with equal sign, equal sign, equal sign. Take this figure for cash in year one here in annual, and then minus the figure in monthly. So let us go to our balance sheet in monthly, balance sheet here in monthly, and at the end of year one is here, cash figure, so it's here, and then press enter. So we see it is 0, and if we drag now this, fail this, Okay, let's do it even at the end of here. Here, long-term liability, total liabilities. Here. Okay, so you can see that formula for year 1 is exactly the same. These percentages on each line item are exactly the same. That's why when we list a yearly position, I mean percentage on annual financials with percentage on monthly financial, but at the end of the year we got 0 here. Okay, so that's what explains. And now let us go and do the exercise for cash flow. Okay, so let us go to our monthly cash flow sheet here, and for cash flow we are going to use total cash flow from operations as our base figure for conversion of line items in cash flow from operations. Of course, in total cash flow from investing activities we have 0, 0 as you can see. So the same for cash flow from financing activities. Very little transactions are here, and they are not from year 1. They are, if we can go here, we see them at January 22, at the beginning of year 0. There is where we have cash flow from investing activities on computer and on furniture and fittings. All these occurred during pre-operating period. So from year 1 here we have no such figures. Of course, in our projections here we had replacement somewhere in a year. So here, for example, there was replacement for computers, but you see we have almost 0 figures in all this, so we cannot do common size financials for this portion of cash flow from investing activities or cash flow from financing activities. So we will limit ourselves to cash flow from operations. So you can use a subtotal of each cash flow component, or you can use net cash flow as a base figure for conversion of all the rest of line items in the cash flow. But in our case, as I said, it is logical to use total cash flow from operations as a base figure for conversion of line items in cash flow from operations, because we don't have, first of all, we don't have figures in these other cash flow components. Okay, so having said that, now let us go to start preparing. So here is where we will start in cases in April. So I start with equal sign and go to pick the cases figure for April here, beginning of year 1 here, this one, and then we divide it by total cash flow from operations, which is E22. E needs to be relative column, the column E needs to be relative, and row 22 needs to be locked. So I start with divide by E, then put $sign and 22, so that to lock row 22. Okay, so I'm done with that, and as we did in the previous, we use percentage. Let us use percentage first here, and then we will change it later. So we use the percentage as the rest first, and that is the percentage, and I can tap now to fill this throughout our projection periods up to here, and I copy all these and select all these line items in cash flow from operations up to total cash flow from operations here, and then paste. So we see that total cash flow from operations is 100% because this is the base figure, okay? And the rest are assuming percentage. Now, cash sales, as you can see here, is negative 148.68%. First, it is more than 100% because total cash flow from operations figure, if we go now to April, where we are doing our analysis here, we see total cash flow from operations figure is negative, okay? That's why our okay, in April here is negative. That's why our percentage was negative. That is one reason. But the other is our cash sales figure is greater than total cash flow from operations. Is positive, and total cash flow from operations is negative. But it's also less. I mean, total cash flow from operations, if we talk in absolute values, without considering negative or positive, in absolute value, total cash flow from operation figure is less than the figure for cash sales. That's why the percentage for cash sales is greater than 100%. So that's explain why a percentage is greater than 100% and why it is negative, because the common denominator here is negative, okay, which is used for division. So that's explanation for April. And because we have total cash flow, negative total cash flow for operation from April, May, and June, we start to have positive figure in July here, you can see, okay? So if we go to our analysis here, we will also see that our percentages here are negative up to June, and they've started to be positive in July, because total cash flow from operations started to be positive in July. But there are other months where total cash flow from operations turns out to be negative. For example, here you see negative sign, okay, because total cash flow from operations in this month specifically turned out to be negative, okay? So those are the explanations. And what we did in our annual, we converted these, instead of using percentage, we use multiples, okay? So we said if total cash flow from operations is 100, is 1, okay, is 1, how many multiples of this cash sales is into? So instead of percentage, we can use multiples. And for doing that, that means now we are not going to use the percentage format here, and instead we are just going to use number, and this number we let us use, okay, here number, I want to use this format here, okay, and so I can let me first, okay, let me use format pointer here to point to the rest of other numbers here up to here. Okay, and of course this one also. All this should have the same formats. So now we are talking about the multiples. So total cash flow from operations is 1, as you can see is 1, and here we say cash sales, the multiple, let's talk in terms of absolute values here, okay, because this negative one, as we've seen, is a product of dividing a base figure that is negative with a positive cash figure. That's why we ended up having this negative, and that's why it is red here. So forget about the color. That means if total cash flow from operations is 1, cash is 1.49. So so that is the multiple, okay? And we have negative up to June, as we said, because the common denominator is negative. From July, we have positive multiple here. So this one can be easily compared by looking at total cash flow from operations in July here. Cash sales is 7.96 times of this one, this total cash flow from operation. So this is the multiple, okay? And for cash purchases, here now, because we have positive cash flows, the negative cash flows here are represented by red, okay? So cash purchases, that is the transaction that draws out cash, and that's why it is negative. But still, it's a multiple, is 2.97 times more than the total cash flow from operations, okay? So that is the explanation for common size financials on monthly basis, vis-a-vis, of course, on annual basis, as we did. And it is important to know how to do this both. Normally, when you do projected financials, you will use monthly projections for the first 12 months. That's the budgeting time, okay? So that one, you do monthly projections, and after that, you are doing annual projections. That is the standard for preparation of projected financials. In my methodology, you have pre-operating period. That is the period where you haven't yet started generating sales. So that period needs to be accounted in itself in my methodology. And then you can now have operating period for 12 months. And then after that, you do annual projection. That is what my methodology is doing. So you may definitely not see it elsewhere, but this is the approach I'm doing, and it makes more sense. If you will listen to other tutorials, you will see that it makes more sense. But feel free to arrange it the way you think it is appropriate for you. But for this methodology, there is pre-operating period, and that pre-operating period is the period that is used as year 0, technically, for the purpose of valuation, year 0, because you haven't yet started generating sales. So that is year 0, and then from year 0, the following 12 months becomes year 1, and so on, okay? So that's also another explanation. And so we have our monthly common size financial, but in this case it is presented as multiples instead of percentage. And the main reason why is suitable using the multiples here, because the total cash flow from operations figure is less than the line items we want to convert. For example, this one is greater than the base figure. Cash sales is greater than the base figure. Salaries and wages is greater than the base figure. Okay, so in this case, using the multiples makes more sense than using the percentage. That's why we had percentages that are greater than 100% when you use the percentage terms. And in this case, because we have items, line items that draws out cash, they are negative. In income statement and balance sheet, all the figures are positive. Okay, we have cost or we have assets and liabilities, but all presented in those financials as positive. But in our cash flow, in this convention, the cash outflows are negative numbers. Okay, in this methodology, they are negative numbers. So that's why presenting in multiples makes you can see that this is right, so it draws out cash. So, but of course this position becomes right when the total cash flow from operations is positive here. So from July it is positive, that's why it started to make sense in this. But before that, we see these cash sales actually brings in cash, but they are negative here because the common denominator figure is negative. Total cash flow from operations is negative. So that's all about this presentation. And after that, the next tutorial is going to be on rational analysis. And after rational analysis, we will proceed from there. Okay? Now, as I wanted to, I will have a session dedicated to explaining the importance of having these monthly projected, especially in the case when you do financial modeling for overdraft facility. Okay, because when you do overdraft facility, then first you cannot present cash indirect cash flow method. They need you to present the cash flow that is used in my methodology here. That is the actual cash flow that shows transparently or shows only cash items featuring into the cash flow. Okay, so that is one. But the overdraft projection needs to be on monthly basis because overdraft is for 12 months. Okay, so you need to show your projections cash flow forecast on monthly basis. Now, in most cases, because I have experience, I've been a bank examiner and also a banker. Okay, so I have experience that when people present to the bank projected financials for seeking overdraft, they only present cash flow statement. It's not accompanied by income statement, balance sheet, and even other and because it's not accompanied by income statement and balance sheet, then even the ratio analysis you can have there. Okay, and it is really an astonishing thing for a banker to accept presentation of projection only based on cash, because whatever you do, you have seen in this presentation, in these tutorials, there is direct relationship between one financial statement and the other, okay? And one financial statement affects the other, okay? And ratio, the ratio analysis, the exercise that we are going to do will show it, that plausibility of the projected financials can also be gauged on projected ratios. Now, if you only have cash flow statement that is not supported by income statement and balance sheet, then you don't have ratio analysis for that, okay? And it is very easy to cook figures when you are allowed to present only projected cash flow statement, okay? But if you had to prepare also income statement and balance sheet, then it wouldn't have been much easier than doing it by preparing cash flow statement as a stand alone, okay? So this methodology is a plus for you to study it, understand it, so that you can use these techniques to do whatever you do, okay? Keep on doing what you are used to, because that's what you have been trained, okay? But this is done from my experience, my inner experience in the world of finance, in the world of banking. So I have developed all this because of that experience that I come up with, and that's why I come up with this methodology, in order to enable now you to prepare projected financial on monthly basis in case you are required to do overdraft. You are required to present financials for overdraft. You should present for both, for all of them. Income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow statement. All of them needs to be there. Ratio analysis needs to be there, okay? If the other, of course, common size is normally used internally. Bankers would not ask you to present that, but you can see that's the reason why you need to have all these knowledge. And it's not a practice in accounting for students to be taught all this stuff, okay? So that's why I have dedicated my methodology, so that it can help people to see the other angle of financial modeling. And if you will follow up my presentations, my tutorials, you will see this is a very easy way of doing, but very effective compared to the methodologies that are commonly used, that are using indirect cash flow method in financial modeling. So let us end up here in this exercise, in this tutorial, and see you in my next tutorial. Please subscribe, share this content if you find it valuable, and so that others are aware of this content and they can learn from this. Bye.